Hello, this is Miss Schiller. I made a mistake in my last video thinking I was reading chapter 15 when it was in fact 16. So I'm going to go back and read chapter 15, which is on page 189 of Fallen Angels by Walter Dean Meyer. I started writing a letter to Kenny. At first I thought I wanted to tell him about the war, about how I felt about the fighting. Then I knew I wanted to tell him about my killing the Kong. I started the letter off really cool, hoping that he was okay and taking care of Mama, stuff like that. Then I told him I wanted to tell him about a typical day that I had here in the Nam. Then I changed it to special day instead of typical day. Then I tried to tell him about the killing. I started off saying that war was about destroying the enemy. Then I remembered that the news guys asked us why we were fighting in Vietnam. It wasn't the same. Saying that you were trying to stop communism or stuff like that was different than shooting somebody. It was different than being scared and looking at somebody who was maybe as scared as you were. In a way, I wanted him to know about me killing the Kong. In another way, I didn't. I wanted him to think I was a good soldier. Being a good soldier meant doing your job. For the guys in the squad, it meant killing the enemy. Before I went into the army, I had thought about being a writer. Teachers said I used words well. But writing what I had done a good job killing just didn't work. Yo, Pee-wee, what's shaking? You know that I killed the Kong I killed? Yeah? How come I killed him? 'Cause he was going to kill your ass if you didn't kill his? Pee-wee said. That's the only reason? Ain't that good enough? I don't know, is it? It better be till your ass gets home, Pee-wee said. Man, this isn't even Booneyville, Sergeant Simpson said. This is the suburbs of Booneyville. He threw his gear on the small folding cot in the hooch that was our home outside of Tam Kai. You should have known this place was going to be garbage, Brunner said. We were right outside of Chu Lai, and it wasn't that hot. Brunner was right. The base at Chu Lai was almost like the old section of Fort Devens. The barracks were neat and clean, and there was even a post exchange. Where we had been biovac'd west of Chu Lai had been cool too. Our new area was something else again. It looked like the other fire bases with barbed wire and minefields all around it. But I didn't see anything that looked like a major generator, which meant that it was going to be dark as hell at night. The hooches were half underground, and it didn't look as if they could take much in the way of direct hits. If we got incoming mortar, we would have to roll out of the hooches into the sandbag-lined trenches around them. I didn't like it at all. The streams around here are a little murky, Lieutenant Gearhart said. Make sure you take your malaria pills. I'm taking every kind of pill I can get my hands on, Pee-wee said. I'd take some birth control pills if I could find me some. There were a few guys there from a boat outfit, the 159th Transportation Battalion. We asked them what they were doing so far from the water, if they were supposed to be boat people. They said that they were teaching the ARVN troops, the Vietnamese friendlies, how to maintain the engines on their landing craft. They any good, I asked? They don't seem to get the hang of how we do things, the sergeant said. They don't expect stuff to work, so when it doesn't, it's no big deal. They don't believe in maintenance at all. When it looked like to me was that we were going to beat down the Kongs and then turn over the last part of the effort to the ARVN troops. That sounded just okay to me. We went on night patrol. Night patrol from our last base was scary. Night patrol from the new base was something else. We were picked up at 2,000 hours, or 2,000. I don't know, military time. The landing zone was in tall grass, which makes us all feel uneasy. Somebody said that an ARVN captain had selected it. The only thing I really knew was that about ARVNs was that Sergeant Simpson said, and that wasn't very good. He said that some units were good as anything we had to offer. Other units were crap, and they would bug out on you in a minute. What we were supposed to do was what they called an interdiction number, which meant that we were supposed to be cutting off the routes the Kongs could use to cut off First Corps from the rest of the war. The area just north of Chu Lai was what they seemed to want. The Kongs we were after had been probing along our defenses, looking for soft spots. They were set up as a mortar attack from somewhere within the jungle, raising a little hell, and then split before anyone could get to them. HQ figured the Kong operation to be a squad-sized unit. We had 2 squads from Alpha Company and 2 ARVN squads to clear them out. What we were supposed to do was to set up an ambush on what we figured to be their route. We hit the landing zone at 20:35 hours. We went in first and cleared the landing zone, and then the ARVNs came in. We had 4 squads, but only 25, maybe 26 guys. All of the squads were short except ours. Simpson said they kept our squad up to par because the battalion commander liked him. Near Chulai, the patrols had been serious, but away from Chulai, in the deep boonies, they were dead serious. There was no talking from the time we hit the landing zone. Once we hit the wood line, the ARVNs broke off from us and went ahead. We were supposed to set up a company-size L-trap. Sergeant Simpson didn't like it because it was too big, and we didn't know how the ARVNs would react. I just hoped and prayed we weren't walking into one. Wallowick was on point. Brunner was in the rear, and Johnson had left flank. I was in the middle again, right behind Brew. In the darkness, you couldn't keep the proper distance. You were always afraid that you would lose the dude in front of you, that you would suddenly find yourself walking through the woods alone. We had signals, but they didn't help when it was really dark. Don't think about anything, Sergeant Simpson said. Don't think about your mama. Don't think about your girlfriends. Nothing. Just look around and be alert. Sergeant Simpson had 6 days left in Nam. Brunner said that Captain Stewart had been on his case to extend for 3 months. The squad said that we would try to watch out for him, but we knew it didn't mean much. I looked around. I couldn't see anything. I listened for Brew's footsteps. He sounded like a cat moving through the night. I heard the cat. We reached the ambush site. The 2 ARVN squads formed the short line of the L. The 2 Alpha Company squads were the long side. Lieutenant Gearhart set out the claymores. He had the detonating wires too. We waited. I was lying on my stomach. I tried not to think about anything that would get my mind off of what I was doing. I tried to control my imagination, to keep the shadows from becoming things they weren't. Something crawled across my wrist. I jumped and I just managed not to cry out. It was too dark to see what it was, but it was still there. I tried to brush it off, but it didn't move. I felt it. I thought it was a finger. For a crazy-ass minute, I thought there was a Kong behind me and he had just dropped a finger on me. I grabbed it and squeezed it. It was soft and mushy. My heart was pounding. Every Kong in the world would hear it. I wanted to turn over and look behind me. I wanted to cry. I remembered something. It was a picture of a guy with his hand on a bicycle. It was a picture that I had seen in the hut. I tried to picture the guy's face that I had shot. Was it the same guy? Could it have been his hut? I wondered what he would have said if he had killed me. Would he have said that he was trying to stop the spread of whatever the hell he thought I stood for? What did he think I stood for? What did the bullets feel like going into his face? Don't think. Stop thinking. Stop. Look ahead of me. Don't think. Don't daydream. Look. Quiet. Suppose everybody had left except me. I didn't hear anybody. Why was I so afraid of being left alone? It was possible. I knew it was possible. Look. I couldn't see anything. Once in a while, the moon would be bright enough to cast a shadow. Somebody had the starlight scope. Probably Sergeant Simpson. In the moonlight, I looked at my wrist. An effing leech. I got my bayonet out and cut it in half, then scraped it off my wrist. It stung like crazy. Ignore it, sure. We waited for an hour, then that seemed like 4 hours. We waited for another hour that seemed like 4 more hours. Voices. Charlie. Remember, Charlie's the enemy. They were supposed to be so quiet, so cool. I moved my hand up to the trigger. The first Charlies were in the killing zone. I waited. I wanted to pull the trigger. I knew they were passing the claymores. I heard them talking. My hands were sweating. We had the upper hand. We had them in the killing zone. I was waiting for Lieutenant Gearhart to open up with the claymores. The claymores would waste them. They were terrible. Nothing happened. The Charlies were going through the killing zone and on the other side. What the hell had happened? Where the hell was the squad? I heard the Charlies go off into the night. They must have passed the ARVNs too. What the F happened? Pee-wee's voice in the darkness. Shut up, Gearhart said. Pee-wee mumbled something to himself and was quiet. Okay, it was cool. We weren't going to do the ambush. We would wait until morning and then split. Maybe Gearhart was scared. He had made a mistake before, and he had lost a man and had one wounded. Now he was playing it safe. I relaxed. My wrist stung. It felt like the leech was still in it. Voices. More Charlies. They were talking again, taking a stroll through the woods. They entered the killing zone. I kept telling myself not to think about the wrist and kept thinking about it. The voices continued. How many of them were there? The nearly full moon drifted behind some clouds, and I got my head down. I looked up. There were the Charlies. Only instead of the 4 or 5 I had imagined, there seemed to be an endless line. I moved my mouth so I could breathe quietly. I had to pee. Voices behind us. The woods were crawling with Charlies. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Don't even think about God, I thought. I thought of all the good things I had done in my life. I didn't deserve to die. I didn't want to die. The voices went on for another 10 minutes. If we had sprung the ambush, we wouldn't have stood a chance. Let's get out of here, Brunner. Shut up, Gerhardt. Quiet, more voices. They kept coming. It lasted nearly 15 minutes. It was only 15 minutes, but it seemed like an eternity. Still, we didn't move. A half hour passed after we heard the last one move, before I heard Gerhardt calling us together. Simpson went out and got the claymores, and we started going back, careful not to take the route the Charlies had taken in case they mined it. Jamal was shaking so badly I wondered how he could stand still all the time. How you doing, man? He didn't answer. I looked at him and he was crying. I made a note to tell Simpson if Jamal was that shaky, he was going to get us all killed. There had to be too many Charlies to pull an ambush. They would have wiped us out. I wasn't sure how many there had been and thought that Gerhardt was only estimating. There had to be at least a battalion, Gerhardt said, was on the radio as soon as we got back to the base. Pee-wee was trying to burn what was left of the leech off my wrist with a cigarette. The damn thing was disgusting. What did they say? Sergeant Simpson looked at Gerhardt and when he put down the phone. They wanted to know if we saw any identifying patches on them, Gerhardt said. How did you figure there were so many? Wallowick asked. They were talking too much, Gerhardt said, too confident. If it had been me, I thought, I would have screwed it up. I would have. Sergeant Simpson extended for 30 days. Nobody wanted to look at him. Nobody wanted to see him. It was as if he had decided to die. That's what we all felt. They gave him another stripe. He was a master sergeant. Big deal. Most of the guys had extended in Nam, did it for the rank, but some had other things in their heads. It was as if the idea that any moment they could be killed excited them. I was a kid on the 119th Street off of 8th Avenue like that. We had run with a gang and was always in a knife fight or something. When he finally got killed, gunned down outside of Showcase Bar on 125th, nobody went to his funeral. We could tell the action was picking up all over. The airstrikes were picking up. The rumble of the big guns started as soon as it was light enough to see and sometimes lasted far into the night. Most of it was outgoing, but not all of it. Once in a while, a mortar shell would land near the base, and then we would all run into the trench built in front of the tent. We reinforced that sucker with some 2x4s that Lieutenant Gerhardt had flown all the way from Saigon. Most of the patrols going out were Vietnamese, and Johnson said that he didn't think most of them were really patrolling. They ain't got a kilometer before you hear popping, he said. He was right. Half the time the ARVNs would go out, especially at night. They would be back within a half an hour saying that they had been hit by a company of Charlies. They would go on alert and send out a few rounds and spend the rest of the night in the trenches. I won $30 in the football pool. I had Green Bay and a point total of 48, which was closer than anybody else. I sent the money to Mama. I got a rash or something on my feet. Pee-wee wanted me to put some of the salve he had bought from the old woman on them, but I said no. I remembered how his face had broken out. At the new camp, we had been working more in higher ground, and I thought the small cracks between my toes would heal. They didn't. A medic from Tam Kai came by with the pills and gave me some powder for my feet and told me to keep them as dry as possible. Your feet got messed up, and you're going to end up with a profile. Yeah, thanks. Remember, he has a profile and it didn't do anything? Lobo damned near dragged Jamal into our hooch. Go ahead, tell him what you heard, Lobo said to Jamal. Sergeant Simpson and Captain Stewart got into a fight, Jamal said. Captain Stewart told Sergeant Simpson that if he didn't shut up and get out of the way to bust him down to private. Who the hell does he think he is? Brunner asked. What they fighting about? Johnson asked. Brunner got up and walked away. He found out that Captain Stewart is volunteering Alpha Company all over the place. He asked him what he was doing that for, and Captain Stewart said that he didn't want to fight. He shouldn't have extended. What Jamal said went down hard. We didn't mind doing our part because it had to be done, even though we always didn't have answers to why we were doing it. But nobody wanted to go out and risk their lives so that Stuart could make Major. The mortars started coming in more regularly over the next 3 days, and the ARVN patrols started staying out shorter and shorter times. We didn't go out for almost a week, but when I saw Captain Stewart talking to Gearhart, I figured something was up. I was right. We were headed for another patrol. The patrol turned out to be a company-sized sweep. We were supposed to take off at 10:00 hours. At 0930 hours, 3 Hueys, escorted by 2 Spookies, huge C-47 gunships came in. It was the rest of our outfit. Lobo wrote a long letter to his father telling him that he was sorry about joining the army. He put in his gear at the hooch before we went on the sweep. "You really sorry?" I asked. He shrugged and I dropped it. I wondered why or how my father would take it if I had gotten killed. I told myself that I didn't care. The more I thought about it, as we waited to load up, the more I began to understand how Lobo felt. Having people care about you was probably the only thing that made any of it all right. Having them not care made your whole life wrong. The company hit the landing zone at 11:17 hours. Some squads from 2nd Platoon went in first. They didn't get any fire, but they looked confused on the ground. We soon got the word that there were punji sticks in the tall grasses we were jumping into. They were sharpened sticks stuck into the ground or in pits. Usually they were covered with shit, either human shit or animal shit, so when they stuck you, you got infected. No one in our squad hit the punji sticks as we landed, and we started moving out towards the wood line. There was no resistance. We got into the wood line and formed a skirmish line. Monaco spotted a mine symbol. He called Gearhart over and showed it to him. There were 3 leaves rolled into the shape of a triangle at the base of a tree. We looked around for the mine but didn't see one. Then Johnson found it. It was on one of our sea ration cans rigged to a limb that you would have to push out of your way if you were over 6 feet tall. Monaco blew the mine, and we went on. Look for shells, burnt leaves, anything that says Charlie's been here, Captain Stewart said. "We found the damn mine," Pee-wee muttered to me. "The tooth fairy didn't leave that sucker." The wood led up a hill, and the grass was getting taller. I hated it. You couldn't see through the grass, and you were scared shit of stepping on a mine. Keep your distance, Gearhart. We were going uphill. We had to lean forward and sometimes catch at brushes with your hands. You didn't want to touch anything that you didn't have to, or pull on anything. You went through a brush and nearly had a heart attack when the thick branches hooked my M16 and jerked it out of my hands. I turned and saw Pee-wee. He disentangled my piece and handed it to me. He smiled. We got a quarter of the way up the hill when a guy in the next squad called out, "What is it?" Stewart called to him. "Looks like a spider hole." It was a corporal, tall, sleeves rolled up, tattooed arms. Stewart stopped the company and and a couple of men approached the hole. A spider hole is a hole dug in the ground that's big enough for 1 arm, sometimes 2, but sometimes they're disguised and there's a tunnel entrance in back of them. The corporal fired a few rounds into the hole and then looked in. "Empty," he said. "Look around some more," Stewart called out, "and be alert." Just then, the whole damn mountainside opened up. The tall corporal spun around from the impact of the bullets and came flying forward. Up the hill, Gearhart was on his knees and pointing up. Simpson was firing and opening up. He started scrambling up the hill toward where the fire was coming from. I heard the rounds whining and buzzing all around my head like angry bees. I was doubled up, firing from a crouched position. I moved against a tree and aimed at where I thought they had to be. This way, Gearhart was going up first. I found myself going up after him. Johnson and Lobo were on our left. Johnson got down and started spreading fire. Brew was feeding him. I kept firing, moving under Johnson's cover. We hit a ledge, and I almost fell over a dead Kong. When we got to the ledge, we were less than 30 meters from the top of the hill. Gearhart had got an M79 from someplace and was shooting grenades to the top. Some guys threw some grenades over the top, and Johnson and another 60 raked it over pretty good. We made the last 30 meters in less than a minute, and everybody throwing grenades over the top. Stewart was on the phone. The choppers and the jets would be in the air already. We got to the top, and there were 3 more Kongs on the ground. One was only wounded. He was half sitting up, and I think he was trying to get his hands up. Captain Stewart opened up on him, and his head snapped back, and his arms flailed for a moment before, or even after, I knew he was dead. We got to the crest of the hill and started firing down the other side. We didn't see any Kongs, but they had to be there somewhere. The fact that we had formed 4 bodies was a miracle. Incoming, I dove to the ground and bounced up to my knees as the blast hit. I tried to stand, but my legs went out from underneath me. What the hell was happening? To the left, that way, I heard Gearhart calling out. It was Johnson. He had a rag or something around the 60 and was shooting it from the hip. Another round hit, and I saw Johnson go to his knees. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. I looked around. It was Brew. There was blood gushing from the top of his leg. I could see the bone. Medic! Medic! I tried to get over to Brew. His head was spinning. I thought I was too scared to move. I tried to force myself to move. Then I looked down and saw that my pants were ripped open. I saw the flesh already starting to swell. I was hit. Oh, Mama, please don't let me die. Get the choppers in here. I pushed myself over on my stomach and looked for my rifle. The next round lifted me, and I felt something hit my wrist and tear into my flesh. I felt as if somebody had put a hot iron on my wrist, then dragged it through the flesh. Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God, please. Back off the effing hill. They got it zeroed. I could get one eye open. I saw Gearhart backing down the hill. He was firing the grenade launcher and looking around. I felt somebody grab me by the collar. I couldn't turn around. My leg twisted under me, and there was pain. But more than the pain in my leg, more than my wrist dangling in front of me, was the thought that I was going to die. I was going to die. Oh, God, please, please. And that's the end of chapter 15.